Hello, we are very excited to welcome you here today for our crash course in application modernization. My name is Brian, and together with my colleague Mikko, we are going to teach you how to successfully modernize your legacy applications and meet your business requirements by putting performance, security, and user-friendliness at the forefront. Please hold your questions for the end. If you're sitting back at home, please put your questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the crash course. My name is Brian Holmberg and I'm a team lead and senior software architect here at Solita. And for the last 3 years, I've been working out of our Aalborg office, where I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different companies within the energy sector, the public sector, and various private companies. Before my time at Solita, I had 20 years experience within the retail and media sectors. Over to you, Mikko.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mikko Jäppinen. I'm a business lead of Solita Digital Design, and I have experience over 25 years designing services and digital applications. I'm really passionate about creating services that are the ones that the humans love to use, but also create business. So without both, we don't have work as a designers. And today I'm excited about share insights, how the customer experience and the design is bringing value in the application modernization. Thank you. And as said, me and Brian, we come from a company called Solita. Solita is consultancy helping our clients to utilize data, IT, AI with customer-centric design to create valuable services and valuable business. We are located in Scandinavia, in Finland, and in Northern Europe, in 9 countries. We are, at the moment, about 2,000 professionals working at Solita.
Yes.
Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Mikko. Well, we'll start by looking at why application modernization is even relevant. But before you even write the first line of code in your application, it's important to look at the business case. So before you decide to spend your time and your money or energy on any project, it's very important that you have a business case that justifies the time and money spent, as well as the benefits and the gains you expect from your project. It's also very clear that if you have a clear and robust business case, it's a huge asset for any project, because you can use this business case as a guiding beacon in your project that can help you guide your prioritizations and your decisions that you are making in your projects. We see a lot of different reasons why people want to modernize their applications. And here we have taken these different reasons and put them in 3 different categories. The first category is the security category. We have a lot of regulatory and organizational guidelines that our applications need to adhere to. For example, we have the GDPR and the NIS2 compliance requirements, which are requirements we get from the European Union. And here in Denmark, for example, we have the 20 technical minimum requirements that all governmental public-facing applications need to adhere to. For example, we see a lot of examples of applications where we need to implement multi-factor authentication to better protect the users and the data of the organization. We also see some applications once in a while that has been compromised in some way and thus needs to be modernized. The next bucket is the business needs. We see a lot of applications where the business needs have changed over time. For example, in applications where the business needs have changed so that the applications need to collect more data than they did before, or they have some changed workflows that needs to be implemented in the applications to follow the business workflows. We also see a lot of organizations that make the shift from on-premises to the cloud. And some organizations use this opportunity to modernize their applications in the move from on-premises to the cloud. We also see a lot of organizations that wants to go from thick clients to thin clients. And why do they want this? This is because a lot of organizations want their employees to be mobile and flexible. And to support this endeavor, you need applications that can run on your employees' phones and tablets. The last bucket of things we see, or reasons we see why people are modernizing their applications, is in the technology space. For example, if you have an application that is written in, for example, Delphi, and you don't have any developers in-house that know Delphi, you might want your application rewritten in a more popular programming language. We also see a lot of applications that are hard to test, and especially test by automated testing tools. And because it's hard to test these applications, it's also hard and expensive to expand upon the functionality of these applications, and it's also expensive to maintain them. So this could be a reason you might want to modernize your legacy application as well. We also see a lot of applications that suffer from poor performance. Poor performance can come from many places. It might be that the application was not originally designed to support all the users and all the data that is being collected and used today. So basically, this is some of the reasons we see why people are doing application modernization projects. Next, we are going to look at some different types of application modernization. Basically, we have these 6 different types of application modernization that we're going to talk about today. The first one is rehosting, or lift and shift, as it's also called. When you're talking about rehosting, we are moving an application from on-premises to the cloud without making any significant changes to the application. Some of the benefits from this approach is that it's usually a quick migration. You get the benefits from reduced infrastructure costs, and you get minimal disruption of your application. The second type of application modernization is replatforming. This is almost the same as lift and shift, except that when you move your application from on-premises to the cloud, you make some minor optimizations to the application. For example, you can move the database from database on-premises to a managed service in the cloud. Some of the benefits you get from this approach is improved performance and scalability, along with better use of the cloud native services. The third is refactoring. This is where you take the code of the original application and restructure the code and the architecture to better scale and perform without changing the core functionality of the application. Some of the benefits of this approach is enhanced performance, easier maintenance, and better scalability. I just have a sip of water, sorry. The fourth type of application modernization is re-architecting. With this approach, we are modifying the application architecture to better fit the modern frameworks and the cloud if we are moving to the cloud. And this usually involves a shift from a monolithic architecture to a service-oriented architecture, a microservices architecture. Some of the benefits from this approach is maximum flexibility, improved performance, and future-proofing of your application. The fifth type of application modernization is rebuilding. With this approach, we are rewriting the entire application, but using the original scope of the original application. So we can take advantage of the modern frameworks and the modern programming languages. Some of the benefits with rebuilding is that you get a modern architecture, you get improved user experience, and you get better integration with new technologies. The final type of application modernization we'll be looking at today is replacing, where you scrap the old application and start fresh. With this approach, you also gain the benefits from improved performance and better alignment with current business processes. And basically, when you replace an application, the new application might have a lot of the same features as the original application, but it also adds a lot to the application as well. There are some common challenges across all these different types of application modernization. Some challenges are bigger and smaller depending on which type of application modernization you choose. One of these challenges is data migration. For example, if we look at rehosting or lift and shift, you basically move your application from on-premises to the cloud, and you don't make any changes to the data model. So data migration is a small task in this project. Whereas if you are doing a replacement of your application, there's a big chance that you are also modifying the data model in your data, and thus the migration job is much larger. Of course, it's depending on how much data you have and how much the data model has changed from the new to the old. Another common challenge is the challenge of technical debt. So if you're just rehosting your application, you're also moving your technical debt from on-premises to the cloud. Whereas if you are replacing your application, you're starting from scratch and eliminating all your old technical debt. So there are pros and cons with all the different types of application modernization. The final common challenge is the challenge of ensuring that we have minimal downtime. And this challenge is the same whichever application modernization project type you choose to use. We also have some best practices that we think you should consider when choosing your application modernization project. And these challenges or best practices is the same in every type of application modernization. The first best practice is to have a well-defined roadmap and a good business case. This is important to know before you start the project. Then it's also very important to have some stakeholder involvement. That's very important because you want to build what your users need, not what you think they need. And you only know that if you talk to them. And then you need to continuously test your application to make sure that you have an application that is working in the end. And now I will give the word to Mikko, so he can tell you a bit about why design is so important in your application modernization projects.
Thanks.
Take it away, Mikko.
Thanks. Yes. So, why design is so important also in app modernization is that when you are trying to be successful in your modernization project, we are not just usually updating the outdated technology or move to the cloud. We also have technical depth, but we also usually have the customer experience depth. And this is something we usually see that when you do the modernization, that's a perfect time to also correct that. And that's why design comes into a play. Design in itself is important because it's a lens which you can use to focus on the customer. So what really brings the customer value and create good customer experience? You might have like a perfect technical solution and your perfect business plan for it, but if it doesn't end up in the use, if your end users are not using your solution or your application, you are not getting the business benefits out of it. And this we see even in a tool like applications which sort of company forces their employees to use. there's a huge resistance to use those with the bad customer experience, and that's why they are not meeting their productivity goals, for example. What the designers do, they work to understand the user behaviors, expectations, and pain points, and this brings the design drivers to create new good services and applications. But that alone is not enough, because we don't want to usually create exactly what the users want. Actually, the users don't know what they want, and I talk about that later. But what is also very important is that we combine, the design is not only like serving the customer needs, it's also serving the business needs. And it's all about aligning those things, doing the compromises according to business goals, according to technological enablers we have, and they consider all those limitations. And the limitations are good, because that's when the creativity comes into play, and then when you make a real difference. Everybody has limitations, but the successful companies and applications use those in their benefit and get most out of those. Little bit about customer experience. It sounds first to some people maybe really like soft thing, that it's nice to have, but it's not. It's actually quite hard thing. It's really like business critical. And you all know that if you go to, for example, App Store, there are millions of applications. You don't want to use them. You only use like 10, about 100 good ones. So, and it has been researched, for example, that with a good experience, customer experience leads like better repurchases in a sites that are selling something, and that's searched by Temkin Group. McKinsey reports that it reduces the development risk and saves money. So when you have like clear understanding what you are designing, and you are designing things that really create customer value, you are actually lower the risk of your investment. And it's also function in the development process, that when you're knowing what you do, you're developing the right thing. Because the worst thing is that you invest a lot of time and money to do the wrong things. It improves conversions, and this is probably very easy to understand, because we all know, we all have bad experiences that we have, for example, in an online shop, try to buy something, and then we stop the process because they are asking something ridiculous, or something is really like broken in this customer experience. The process is broken, or something is not driving your trust, that you feel that, okay, if this feels so bad, maybe I don't buy from this shop. And actually, 64% of people confirms that this customer experience it's much more important than actually the price. And then on a company level, so the companies that really like invest into design, they get like huge return of their investment, because the companies which are really like succeeding, creating applications and services that people love to use, they get much more revenues, and their company value is like much better than the laggards in a user experience. So the user experience, not something, it's a hard thing. You have to have that. It's not a choice if you want to be successful. And as a conclusion of the subject of customer experience is that to remember that it increases customer loyalty, it saves money, it ensures the product and application quality and efficiency, it boosts conversion rates and fosters motivation and acceptance of end users. So pretty important stuff. So how and when you use design in application modernization? the most value you get that you include some kind of design work and design thinking in every stage of your modernization. In the very first, when you start to identify what are the pain points in existing app, what are the things that need to be repaired or need to be redesigned and to get better application. This is the stage when you actually get most out of design. There's common thinking that design is something that you add later on. That's not design, that's styling. And that's not like giving effects of the design. The design is a crucial part of the whole process. So it starts with the identify phase, where you first take a deep dive into understanding how the current application is used, how it fails to or frustrates the end users and customers, and then understand that what are the things that we need to repair. It's done with the quantitative research. We interview, we observe the actual users, and we also use qualitative research. We have analytics. We go through how the existing application is performing. So the goal is to create comprehensive picture of the user experience. What works, what doesn't, and what opportunities there exist that we could create better value for our customers. And as said, simultaneously, as a design team, we work closely with the business stakeholders. We need to understand what the company is trying to do in the future. What is their strategy? What is their business like? How this application is? What is that application's role relation to that strategy and business? And what are the outcomes that the business want to achieve in the future? And also the constraints. So what are the levels of investment we can do? What are the schedule timelines? What are the technical limitations and restrictions? We need to understand those. And what the design do then is to put all these together. So we do this balancing, that we have the heart, the good customer experience, and we know that we probably cannot do everything that the customers want, but we know what is really important. So we keep those, and then we balance that we are meeting the business objectives also. So the vision is description of this why we are doing this thing. We want to create business value. We want to create customer value to achieve this. So, next thing is the actual design phase. And here where the app begins to take the shape. It's the stage where the vision turns into concrete concepts, visualization, prototypes, things of the features we must have there. But what we want to do is to validate these ideas with the user. Sorry, I shouldn't shake my head so much, maybe. But the question is, how can you validate something in the future? We don't have that time machine. Or do we? Because actually we do. The design works as a time machine also. And that's the greatest part, I think, of the design is. It's a design is a method where you create something in the future, and it gives you possibility to test those ideas in the future with the real users. And how you do this is in the core of this time machine. It starts by the creation of solution hypothesis. So when we have done the vision, we have like understanding but what is not working at the moment. But usually we want to add something to our application. So the future application is not the same as the existing application. And we have to create that future application. And this where the designers are really good. So we envision, we create prototypes, visualization, and we create those in a way that we can show them to our customers and bring them into a future. First, we create the hypothesis, and then we use those as a tool to create insight. So what is really important when we have that future application in our customer's hand? That enables, for example, our customers to test drive and validate how the future app would look and function in a real time. And most effective is done in interview sessions with the qualitative research, and we call that what-if method. So we ask lots of what-if questions. So what if there would be an application that would streamline your repetitive tasks and would automate them and would function like this? Or what if you could customize app to match your workload like this? So that way we can really get relevant feedback from our customers. We cannot go and ask them, what do you want in the future? They don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. But this way, we can actually really create and validate something in the future. Here is some concrete examples and basics, like what are those hypotheses usually like? They can be in a beginning be like very rough sketches, like visualization of an ideas. And actually, the roughness of the sketches is good when you test ideas. If you have too defined or too detailed prototypes, the concentration and the focus goes to a wrong place. You're not testing then anymore the idea, you're testing actual solution, and you get irrelevant feedback. And we have experience of this. We have sometimes created too high-level hypotheses, and during the interview and qualitative research, suddenly see that these are not working. We have to scale them down. We have to do them more roughly. Second phase is wireframes and layers, especially in the digital services, that you have something looking very similar that the user can and the customer can understand, okay, it would be functioning like this. This would be good, this would be bad. And I would like to have this done different way. And at the end, we go gradually to the actual solution. And in the end, the prototypes, they can be really detailed. They can be clickable, interactive prototypes, which we then validate. And in this stage, we already start to get really valuable feedback to do the how the flow actually should work and how the user interface actually should look like. In the end of this concepting phase, this time machine phase, we have concrete validated concept for the app. And this concept is really important because it's sort of distilled all this insight we have gathered. It describes the solution we are aiming at. And so it works as a decision-making tool internally that all the different competencies we usually have in app projects. For example, we have technical professionals, UI and UX professionals, data and cloud, for example. So and the business holders also. That it's really important that we all share the common understanding what we are aiming at. Of course, during the development phase, there might be some changes, but the concept keeps the sort of the core of the idea there. And if you have to make compromises, then you should also understand that if we compromise the essential feature, for example, we might not end up with the application that creates the business value. So it's really important that it sort of keep the implementation on track, that we actually heading to the right place. It's sort of a North Star that guides us to a right place. Design phase is also part in a post-launch. So this is the phase we call scaling, is that usually the development don't stop there. There might be some needs, and we might need have new ideas and new needs for the application, and we call that we continuously develop the application and have designers in that process. It's really like important that have that ongoing. Of course, the amount of work difference in a different phase of the project. Good, but just like end words, that it's crucial. The design and the customer experience is crucial part of creating successful and future-ready application. It's sort of not a option. Somebody has to do the design anyway. Somebody is doing the design anyway, and so if you want to be good at it, take professionals, take all team and use it together. And now Brian continues with the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikko. Yes, and in this first case of our crash course, we'll be taking a look at an application in the public sector in Denmark where they use state on premises. We're going to look at a case for the Danish Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. The EPA has an old waste data management system. And this waste data management system is used to track all waste produced, processed, and transported throughout Denmark. And this was an old platform that was originally built back in 2009. And at the time, it was made with the state-of-the-art technology. But since then, there have been made a lot of changes to the system. This was mainly due to regulatory demands, and we have all this focus on recycling and environmental sustainability, and all these demands necessitated that more data should be collected into this waste data management system. And this was a monolithic structure where features were just added on continuously, which over time induced a lot of technical depth into the system, which means that the system has become unpredictable with some unpredictable behaviors that had to be chased down and corrected. On top of this, the EPA were told that they had some new policy areas that they needed to support from 2025. These new policy areas needed IT support that was built on top of the existing waste data. One of these new policy areas was a demand from the EU, and another one was due to regulatory demands from Denmark. To be able to maintain and be able to change and add policy areas in the future, the EPA decided that they needed an IT platform instead of just a single application as they had before. They also said that they wanted this IT platform to be cloud ready. So what do we mean by cloud ready? It's because the EPA actually has a cloud first strategy. And by cloud first, they of course mean they want to move all the applications into the cloud. So you might ask, why didn't they just move this IT platform into the cloud? But they weren't allowed to move the data into the cloud because of GDPR concerns. So they still have the ambition of moving this platform into the cloud in the future. So they wanted the application to be cloud ready. And by cloud ready, we have containerized the complete IT solution, and it's running it on a Kubernetes cluster on premises at the EPA's infrastructure supplier. And this will make it easier to move the application into the cloud at a future point in time. The EPA also wanted to integrate this waste data into their existing document and case management system. So the state of the original waste data management system, you see here on your right, you see a simplified architecture drawing of the existing or the old application, where it's quite obvious that we are looking at a monolithic architecture, where we have the waste data management system in the middle, and we have the stakeholders on top, with the internal stakeholders at the EPA and the external stakeholders, which are people that are inputting waste raw data, raw waste data into the system, as well as the consumers of this data. And then we have some integrations to external systems as well. Back in 2021 and 2022, 2 reports were made about the old waste data management system. One by Deloitte and another one by Solita. Both reports concluded that the tech stack was outdated, and this fact in itself meant that the system needed a major overhaul. They also concluded that because of all this technical debt we've been talking about, it was very expensive to maintain the application, and it would be very expensive and hard to expand upon the functionality of the application. And of course, on top of this, there was a very low test coverage of the system, which again meant it was hard to add new functionality without breaking old functionality. Because of the conclusions of these reports, the EPA decided that they needed an IT platform instead of a single system. So here on your right, we have a simplified drawing of the new IT platform, where we have the waste data at the center of the IT platform, and on the top we have the public or the customer-facing portals, where we have the 2 new policy areas, the EPR and the SAT portals. Those are the 2 new policy areas dictated by EU and Danish regulation. And then we have the data management portal, which is the public-facing part which closest resembles the old waste data management system. So this is where the external users are inputting the data and consuming the data, whereas the 2 new policy areas are only accessed internally by the EPA employees. It was very important for the EPA that the different policy areas were separated and could work independently of each other, both from a security and a data perspective, so that some employees were able to log into one of the portals but not the other, for example. This also meant that we could split up the cost of running this platform between the different business units that are governing the different policy areas. Then, of course, we have the internal EPA integrations with some of the other systems within the EPA, and we have some external integrations to a lot of external systems, which is both data consumers and data providers. And because we have a shared IT platform, we have some shared components across all the portals, such as login, logging, monitoring, email, and so on and so forth. This gives us the benefits of scale and reusability. And of course, they also all share the same infrastructure, such as servers, firewalls, and etc. The EPA had 5 main requirements. 3 of these requirements are quite common. We see them across most of our projects. But then they had these 2 special requirements. The first one is, of course, they wanted a modern and secure solution. So we are using best practices to ensure that we have a secure and future-proof application. Secondly, they wanted a user-friendly application, because as Mikko also mentioned in the design part of the crash course, it's important to have an application that users can use intuitively and easily. Because if you have an application that is too difficult to maneuver through, you will have a lot of support as well to the internal EPA support functions. And then the third one is that they wanted the platform to be easily extendable, so that they could add and remove or change these policy areas in the future. Because we have to face the facts that we are living in a changing world, and especially with the big focus we have on environment and recycling and the waste we produce and how we get rid of it. Now we come to one of the two special requirements. This is not a requirement we see that often. This is the cloud-ready requirement. As mentioned a few slides back, the EPA has this cloud-first strategy, but they weren't allowed to move the data into the cloud because of GDPR concerns. So basically, we containerized the application and put it in a Kubernetes cluster. This means if you think back on the different types of application modernization types, you can see this. They made a replacement project for replacing the old monolithic architecture with an IT platform, but thinking ahead, so when they want to move their application from on-premises to the cloud, it should just be a lift and shift. So basically, you're breaking down your project in multiple stages and simplifying the application for future work. The fifth and final main requirement, they had a lot of other requirements, but this is the 5 main ones, was external stakeholder involvement. This is, of course, also an important part of any project, to have the stakeholder involvement. But in this project, the stakeholder involvement was bigger from Solida's side than it usually is. So this meant that Solita had to facilitate and run a lot of workshops and info sessions, both with internal stakeholders at the EPA and external stakeholders with the data consumers and data providers. One of the reasons why this requirement was that important for the EPA is that the old waste data management system had kind of a bad reputation with the users. A lot of users didn't quite trust the data. They thought it was lacking or not trustworthy. So it was very important that those concerns were brought into the new project to try to adhere to them or change the system so that the users would feel more secure or have a bigger confidentiality in the data that were produced by the system. Right off the bat, when the project started, it quickly became clear that the project had to be cut up into a version 1 and a version 2. This was mainly because of some tight deadlines on these new policy areas. So basically, the version 1 became an MVP, or a minimal viable product, where there had to be made some tough prioritizations about which features should be in the version 1 and which features could be pushed to a version 2. And the specification and the design started immediately, but it started first on the known entities. And the known entities in this project was the platform infrastructure and shared components, along with the data management and the waste data storage. Because of this is the part that most closely resembles the old waste data management system. Whereas the SAT portal and the EPR portals were the two new policy areas that wasn't ready to go at this point in time. Actually, the final regulation weren't completed more than 3 months before the deadline, so it's an agile process. And to be able to get it done in time, we had to start up 3 tracks in parallel. So basically, the two first, the platform infrastructure and the data management and waste data storage, were in one track, and then the SAT portal was a second track, and the EPR portal was a third track. So we had a very good design process, as well as Mikko mentioned, with a lot of design workshops across the 3 different tracks, with a lot of workshops and a lot of feedback going back into the project as well. We had organized the team as one big team of developers, but working on these 3 different tracks in parallel. And actually, the developers moved from track to track, depending on which tasks were needed in the projects or on the tracks at the time. At the height of the project, we had 2 lead developers, one lead developer who had the overall technical responsibility for the first track, the track about the infrastructure and the old waste data management system, and another lead developer who had the overall technical responsibility for the 2 new policy areas. We had 14 developers, 3 UI UX designers, 2 testers, 1 architect, and 2 project managers. I would say this has been a very agile process because of all these workshops, as Mikko also mentioned, gave us a lot of feedback back into the project, which also meant that some features were moved from version 1 to version 2, some were moved the other way from version 2 to version 1. Some features were scrapped altogether because of feedback from the users that said, we don't use that feature, or this feature is more important to us, and completely new features were added as well. So it has been a very agile process. And now, I think you have heard enough about the EPA and their IT platform. So now I will give the word to Mikko, where he will tell you about an exciting case from Finland.
Thank you. Yes. I'm going to tell you about the case of S Group's My Purchases. And you probably are not familiar with the S Group. It's a big Finnish retailing organization, a chain that has lots of different grocery stores and many different kind of hotel chains and restaurants. So it's a huge player in Finland. It has over 3.7 million loyal customers, which says a lot because Finland we are like 5.5 million inhabitants, so you get the scale. The My Purchases service is a unique cost-free service for all loyal customers. And the idea is that they get through that service and application extensive and detailed data of their own purchases. And this helps the customers to analyze their own consumption and support, for example, healthier and more sustainable shopping. It has been a big success. It has created big impact in Finland. 10% of the Finnish population uses the service actively. The service brought new customers to S Group, and 48% of the users have changed their buying behavior because of this application. So they have started to eat more vegetables, more local food, cut their CO2 emissions, for example. The average yearly purchase of My Purchase users is over 24% more than the ones who are not actively using it. So it has also making a huge business impact in S Group. So it's calculated in tens of millions of euros. It also won a Golden Lion in a Cannes and in a category of the best use of data. So, but let's jump into the beginning of the project. So, S Group faced a challenge a couple of years ago. Their loyalty programs are money back or cashback type of program. So we all Finns have this green card, and when we buy something, we show that card and we get bonus points, which then at the end of the month turns into a cashback. And this is of course good for the customers who are using and concentrating their purchases to S Group. So it makes sense. But if you are not using the S Group services or purchase in S Group chain so much, it doesn't make that much sense. So, and also we wanted to create something on top of that. So if you concentrate your purchases, it means that the S Group have huge data set of your life. They know what you eat, they know where you have your holiday, where you go to restaurant. So this data was sort of hoarded at that time within the company, but the management wanted to gave a challenge that find a way that how we can turn that data asset to a competitive advantage of the company, that we create even more loyal customer and motivate the loyalty through that service. And the challenge was also that they it was quite ambitious that let's create the S Group clients and customers most knowledgeable customers in the world of their giving their good data of their purchases. The first version of application was done internally, so that was like the first step of it. There was alpha version with a very limited functionalities within the company, and 1,400 employees were using it. So and that was used to first test that we can provide the data. So the data scientist uses it as a tool to find the ways how we can get this important data from the purchases and turn it to something relevant for the users. And also it was used as a design research group that we made with them questionnaires and research what really matters most for that internal group. So we created the vision as mentioned before. So we understood how the existing service is working and how it creates value for this internal user group. And most of all, it gives us design drivers for this modernized application, because now we wanted to scale that service which was serving this 1,400 internal users to a service that serves 3.7 million users. So it's quite a big leap for both technically, so how we can make that in technical wise, how we can make it in data wise, how we keep all that data secured in a GDPR world, and also the customer experience, that then it's totally different to expose the service to 3.7 million from teenagers to pensioners. So it's totally different challenge in also in the customer experience wise. So, as mentioned before, we used our time machine and created the hypothesis. So we created different visualization styles, how we believe that we could create value for the end users and customers. Different ways of reward and motivate customers. So just showing the information, that's like a first level. You show the purchases, but then there's a certain things you can create about that data. You can start to create services utilizing the data, which, for example, motivate you to eat more healthier or be more sustainable. We also wanted to create service which is really modular, because we knew that in the future there will be new feature we want to publish for our customers. So we have to find a way which would be really like modular and easy to scale up. And probably the key was that how to create simple and understandable data, because how we visualize something which is and make it interesting, because the data in Excel works for engineers types, but it doesn't work for everybody. So we have to find sort of a balance between that, how we create a service that it's really like creating something usable to all our users and customers. Then those, of course, hypothesis visualization prototypes were used in customer interviews. So we tested and validated our ideas and constantly iterated them to be even better. And it's an iterative process where we get the feedback and make the new versions and get better feedback then with the new versions. And what was important also, that this was guiding the data scientists and other stakeholders, that we constantly kept the business stakeholders on a track what is creating value. And also that led to the data scientists, that we said that if we could provide this type of data, that would provide really much value for the customers. And then they find out, can we do it? And also other way around, that they said that there is certain limitations, that we cannot provide more than this. And then we validated, does this really create enough value that it's worth to implement? And based on that customer insight gathered in co-design process, we worked with technical experts and business owners, and we designed what would be in the first version that would be launched to all the customers. And there was first data set was like the products you have purchased, fruits and vegetables, all the transactions you have done, the places you shop, the shopping rhythm, which days and what times you shop, and the plastic bags. And actually, plastic bags may sound funny, but that was like a first, like really like it's a simple and easy number that it's really like make the first impacts in a customers, that they started to realize that how many plastic bags they were buying, and then we saw that it started to drop. They sort of wake up that, hey, come on, I'm creating so much plastic pollution, and I didn't know that. I didn't realize that before. So these new features were, of course, developed in utilizing agile and iterative process, and always we wanted to keep the customer-centric approach in the middle of it, and that's really the core of the success of the application. And probably the key success factors are that project was done and we are still doing it customer-centric. So everything is tested and designed at really like high level, that it really answers the customer experience and the customer's needs. It was done in an agile development method, which is also important because it gives the dynamics that you can test and you can change things while developing. So you are not just like locking that let's do these features, but if you find out in a customer-centric design process that, okay, this is actually doesn't make sense, we can change that. So Agile gave that dynamics into that process. And the design was done by a combined team, which includes software, business design, data, and Scrum professionals. And the good cooperation within the team is also really crucial. And the customer centricity gives fuel to that process, that if we all concentrate to create value for the end user and our customers, it sort of leads us to a better place than if we are letting like other things lead our work and the process. And it's good also to understand that design is not only done by designers, that design is this overarching thing that every professional and every competence that must be doing it, that we get really like successful applications done. Thank you.
Yes.
Back to you, Brian.
Thank you. Well, I'll just start by revisiting this slide about all the different types of application modernization. So basically, we have been talking about two cases here, two, I would say, very big cases, but we do all these different kinds of cases. Big cases, small cases, medium-sized cases. So basically, this is just a reminder of the many different types of projects that you could run and that we could help you with. Today, we have been talking about a lot of different stuff. We started by talking about why a business case is so important. We went through this 6 different types of application modernization. We told you about why design is so important for you to succeed in your projects. We had a case about waste data management, and we had another case about the importance of putting customers in the center. And now I'm sure you're sitting out there or here and thinking, well, I have an application that I want to modernize, and how should I proceed from here? Well, basically, we can help you in every step of your application lifecycle. Basically, sometimes we come in and help with the analysis and the specifications and finding out what to do and the design process and building a business case. And sometimes we only execute on the plan that has already been made within the organizations. So we can help you with whatever step in the process that you need. So if you need to reach out, you can reach out to your local sales representative. And if you don't have a local sales representative, you can visit solita.fi and find out who is your local sales representative. Yes, and I also just want to give a little teaser, because if you want to hear a little bit more about lifecycle services, we are doing a deep dive in lifecycle services here at the end of January. And lifecycle services is where we take over your maintenance and further development of your application so that you can sleep tight at night. And now it's time for questions. So I'm sure you are dying to ask us some questions. We have an iPad over here with some of the questions from our online audience. And question number 1 is from you, Mikko.
Okay.
What is the difference of UI and UX?
Okay, yeah. The difference of the UI and UX is that UX is a broader thing. UX is everything that is part of this user experience, and UI is user interface. So it can be a application view that you are looking at. That's a user interface, but user experience is when you go to a shop, meet the persons there, meet the brand in the different touch points, use the brand's application. All that creates user experience, and that is designed also. But that experience is designed by many different actors. They can be like customer service. They can be sales representatives. They can be digital services. So the UX is basically this whole process, and user interface is just part of it.
It's more the colors and the pretty design. Whereas
Well, I wouldn't downgrade user interface so much. It's
okay,
also
okay.
processes, and it's really important.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say that it's irrelevant. It has to be good.
Yeah.
So if you think, for example, car, and you go and see the dashboard and how it functions, it keeps you alive if it's good.
Yeah.
If it's bad, you might die. So don't downgrade the user interface. It's important.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah. We have a microphone here.
At the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned something about downtime.
Yes.
Between the migration from one app to, say, for instance, instead of you're replacing.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you're replacing it, the downtime, how do you manage that?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what kind of solution we are looking at. For example, if we are looking at a web application, for example, then if we are replacing the application, then we would run the application side by side, and then just move the pointer of the website, so that when you're ready, you just put the traffic on the new side, and then you have made your change. But of course, if you have a more complex system, like if you have some applications, some thick clients that are installed on your employees' computers, that's another question, another problem altogether, because you have to work with your internal IT on how to distribute the new application, and you might have some downtime because you have to move some data. For example, if you have a system where all your employees are inputting orders or updating stuff, I don't know, or you have external users that are doing the same, and you need to migrate your data from an old application to a new application, then you need to have some downtime, depending on the time it takes to migrate your data. In some instances, we see that you have to close down the application for a week because it's a complex process to migrate the data. Whereas and that's the impact. You want to minimize the impact. So you want to make this migration as fast and as good as possible. So of course you can practice it, but at one point in time you have to say, stop, no more new data in the old system. We have to migrate the old data to the new system, and then we can start using the new system. So that are some of the challenges, but that's more depending on the application itself and not the type of application modernization you are doing. Whereas if, for example, if we are doing a lift and shift, we are not changing anything. So we are not really you don't have to migrate data as such. So it's more like you move or you copy your on-premises application to the cloud, and then you just move the pointer, and then you're up and running on the new system. Good question. Thank you. Do you have any questions from the... No? Oh, we got some now.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a question here from chat. When modernizing front-end architecture and UI, how would you compare incremental upgrades, e.g., for example, view by view, versus developing a whole new application and releasing it all at once? Do we have a take on that, Mikko?
If I understood it right, how would you compare them?
So instead of doing a big bang, you are just doing small changes?
Yeah. Doing the small changes are especially in the scaling phase. When you are doing the continuous development, you do that you don't crash everything, but you little by little bring new features, new corrections.
Okay.
And for example, if I compare to that, for the example of the S groups, my purchases services, that we created a design system that enables that it's easy to add new features there, that it's really like modular.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can prepare for that with a good design.
Yeah. So you have a lot of components, so you have like a drop-down menu.
Yeah,
and
you code it in a way that it's, in that case, we created that all the features are own widgets. So you can add new widgets ad infinitum. So it wasn't that if we add something new, we have to change something else, because then it make the development and the design really difficult.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
I don't know if I answered the question, but
I think you answered it.
Good.
Perfectly. Thank you. Then we have another question from chat as well. What is a good organizational setup between Solita and a client to work? I would say that it's very important that we have some engagement from the organization as well. So it's important that when Solita comes with some IT professionals that wants to solve some solutions, it's very important that the client also have the relevant decision makers on board, so that the decisions can be made fast and you don't have to wait for months to have decisions made, because that can really drag out the process and really also make the project more expensive, because we have to wait and people perhaps have to do some other stuff and get back and have to get back into the things on this particular project. So I would say that it's very important to have the right people assigned and have the time necessary to actually run this project. So I think that's a good setup and good best practices. We have another question from the chat as well. Do you have experience with building, deploying, or designing user interfaces in mixed reality, or have you come across this specific question before?
Yes, we have. We have done projects that includes a VR, in a drone environment, that the drone driver or controller is using VR, and it also he also is part of the controlling the whole drone fleet. So it's a mixed reality that he sometimes has to take control of one drone and on the other interface controlling the whole fleet.
Okay.
At least that comes to my mind, but probably there are many other projects we are working also at the moment.
Okay, great. Exciting project.
That is exciting, yes.
Cutting edge. Yes. Any other questions from the audience? No? And it doesn't look like we have any more questions from the chat either. So I'll just say thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for tuning in at home. So thank you. and goodbye.
Thank you.